funding for the years 2022 through 2023. I'm sure that you all know that each year, the City of Rochester is fortunate to receive some funding from the federal government through housing and urban development. And that funding is used for a number of very valuable things in our community. You will hear more about all of those things in this presentation, and then there will be an opportunity for you to provide public input for us to help as we plan the implementation of the items that we'll be discussing tonight. So again, I would just like to welcome you to this opportunity, and we look forward to your participation. I will now ask Henry Fitz to take us through a presentation, and then we will get your input. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner, and welcome everyone. I'm going to bring up some PowerPoint slides we have prepared. Sorry about that. All right, so just to recap our agenda for this evening. First, we're going to give a background on the annual action plan and what that means, the process that we go through for allocating federal grant funding each year. Next, we will go through an overview of each of our major program areas with our program managers presenting about their work and their recent accomplishments in those programs. Following each of those topic areas, there will be a Q&A session where you can either submit verbal or written questions that we can go through. Up to 10 minutes will be allotted per category. Finally, we will talk about an amendment to our citizen participation plan, which outlines how we do public meetings and solicit input for these processes, and talk about the next steps and schedule for the remainder of our public input phase of this process. So as a background, HUD funding is one of the major sources that helps support the work that we do in Department of Neighborhood and Business Development. It provides about $12 million a year in federal funding. And we are an entitlement community, which means we don't have to apply and be competitively selected for this funding. We get it every year. And we just have to go through a process of community engagement to budget and appropriate those funds. The process for outlining our plans for those funds is governed by the consolidated planning process. We have a 5-year consolidated plan that outlines major goals and objectives for us over the course of that forthcoming 5 years. And the 5-year plan is broken up into 5 annual plans, annual action plans. HUD funding also, in general, is to be used for, neighborhood redevelopment and assisting, low-income and moderate-income households, primarily in housing and economic development areas. Can touch on things such as public facilities improvements and playgrounds and things of that nature. So our current 5-year plan began July 1, 2020 and runs through June 30th, 2025. We are about to go into year 3 of that plan. We are soliciting public input in the development of that year 3 plan. Our 4 major streams within the plan, there are 4 different grant types: community development block grant, home investment partnership or home, emergency solutions grant, ESG, and housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, HOPWA. Each of those has some of its own restrictions and eligibility that governs what we can do with it. So again, the plan we are working on and preparing and soliciting input for is our 2022-2023 plan. which would begin July 1, 2022, and would detail how we're going to spend our annual allocation of those federal dollars. So there'll be, a budget and anticipated, accomplishments for each of our programs, proposed programs, and a framework for establishing how our programs are helping us achieve our larger goals established by the city in our 5-year plan. Important to note for this plan and our presentation in general tonight, it does not include any CARES Act or American Rescue Plan funding, which is, COVID stimulus funding, COVID recovery funding. That is governed through a separate process. The American Rescue Plan is governed through the U.S. Treasury, through a separate federal department. So that is not involved through this planning process. The CARES Act funding was involved in a couple annual action plans previous to this one. So we are no longer budgeting out CARES Act funding. And we're close to fully spending down the remaining CARES Act funding. So our 4 major areas, again, for HUD programs are CDBG, Community Development Block Grant. That covers a wide range of activities, the widest range of activities of these 4 grant types. And then the remaining grant types are all in the housing topic area, home investment partnership, HOPWA, and ESG. Here is a look at what our funding totals look like by grant type. So again, we get about $12 to $13 million total per year. Largest being CDBG, which also happens to be the one that touches the most topic areas. We also budget out what's called program income, which is repayments from loans or other types of grant recoupments that we recollect. Those funds can be then reappropriated and put back into our programs. So that those program income dollars are also budgeted as part of this plan. As you can see, we are, until we get our final allocation figures from the federal government, we have to plan on the assumption that we'll get the same amount as we did last year. So you'll see we're currently budgeting for 0 change. As we find out our final figures, we will finalize the plan. You'll be able to see that in the draft version of the plan, what those final figures are. We are expecting a large increase in program income this year, primarily due to some very old loans coming due. I'll talk briefly about CDBG federal requirements. There are a few strings that come with these federal funds, and for good reason. We want to make sure that they are, benefiting the community and people in need, and driving impact that they're intended to drive. So HUD, the federal government, gives us a framework that we need to ensure that all of our work meets one of 3 national objectives, which are similar to kind of defining what eligible activities are. So our work either needs to, 1, benefit low and moderate income persons. We must spend at least 75% of our funding doing that. We can spend it on activities that prevent or eliminate blight. We cannot spend more than 30% on that. That's things like demolition. And then our 3rd category is urgent needs. So that would be responding to potentially a natural disaster, or in the case of COVID, that was an eligible urgent need situation. So all of our activities need to tie back to one of these categories, and we need to have documentation to show. So here is kind of at a high level, the categories of eligible activities underneath the national objectives. So we can do economic development work, supporting businesses with loans and grants to expand and add jobs. We can do neighborhood development, redevelopment, supporting neighborhood planning, street liaison activities. We can do rehab and clearance and demolition. We can provide public services, such as we do it through our Department of Recreation and Youth Services with these funds. Support services for the elderly. We can do infrastructure improvements, such as road and public facilities improvements that benefit community. And finally, housing activities, affordable housing and homeownership. So that's at a high level. We'll get into more detail as we get through each of our programs with our program managers, who are our experts in these topic areas. So without further ado, we will move next into those topic by topic presentations. I wanted to go through brief instructions for our participants with us tonight. You can at any time submit a written question or comment in the Q&A box that you'll see in your Zoom window. The Q&A box no one will be able to see your question except us panelists. And if it's a quick answer, quick, short and sweet answer, our panelists may actually answer your question in the chat, and then the answer will be available for everyone to see. Longer, more involved questions we will save for our dedicated Q&A slots after each topic area. You may also ask a question verbally during the Q&A session following each topic. So I will, at that time, ask people to use the raise hand function in Zoom, and I'll be able to see which participants have a hand raised, and I will unmute you to be able to ask your question, and we can go through that process. You'll have 1 minute to ask your question or state your comment. And in general, one question we always get is, will these slides be shared? Will this be recorded? Yes, this all will all be available immediately following as a recording on YouTube, and we'll be posting the slides to our webpage for this planning process, cityofrochester.gov/consolidated plan 2020. All right. So first up, I'd like to introduce Thad Schofield, who is our Director of Business Development, to talk about the programs they operate with CDBG funds.
Thank you very much, Henry, and good evening, everybody. Yes, my name is Thaddeus Schofield. I'm the Director of Business Development for the City of Rochester, and we work with businesses all across the city in every single quadrant, every type of business: manufacturing, retail, high-tech, startups, experience businesses. It's our goal we have three primary goals. Number one, to create and retain jobs, increase investment, because when businesses increase their investment, that benefits the community, and it leads to people buying items from city businesses for everyday products and goods and services. And our third goal is to assist businesses with providing products and services for the community. If there's an area of a need, we're always trying to help fill that need and incentivize businesses to grow and create jobs in those areas. We have many different programs, a few which I'll mention here. We have the Small Business Matching Grant, which helps many businesses that provide valuable products and services to the community, such as retail, commercial, clothing stores, tax offices, etc. And these small business matching grants provide assistance to use towards advertising, computers, signs, and equipment. We also have other grants that can help with renovations, working capital, equipment, and low interest loans. And our loans can be anywhere between 1% to 3% interest rates and are flexible. And we do our best to help as many businesses that do need help obtain financing that may not always be available. Last year during the pandemic, we quickly arrived at a new grant called the Order Grant, and this helped businesses with online ordering. So being that many businesses had difficulty having customers come to their restaurants and shops, we provided this order grant that would actually help provide funding so that they would have an online system to be able to order with customers remotely. We have many projects, as you can see below. We had, with our CDBG and HUD funds, we had 42 businesses assisted with 42 jobs created and retained. Some of the projects that we worked upon and assisted with, and we're very proud of, is the Zweigels expansion. That's a business that has been a long time city business. And, we are very happy to help with their expansion, see them remain in the city of Rochester and grow. And they have nearly 68 people that work there, many city residents. Another one was a Sibley building called the Mercantile. This attracted 6 restaurants to downtown Rochester and helped in the redevelopment and further growing downtown Rochester. And it's things are going very well, and we look forward to seeing them continue to grow. This most recent year, we received $550,000 allocated from the 2021 through 22 programming year. Our goals and objectives for 2022 and 23 are to continue to stimulate the economic growth and create and retain jobs. We want to see more jobs created, more jobs in those businesses that are currently here, see their jobs retained and continue to be successful. A few projects that we're currently working with that are very exciting. 10 Winthrop Street, we attracted RDG and Partners CPA firm from outside of the city to the city. Vigneri Chocolates, a favorite of ours, they're actually looking at an expansion as well. And part of our funding is being used to potentially attract a large optics firm that potentially can employ up to 100 people. So we're working hard, we're being diligent with our funding and the programs that we have, and we're always trying to find new ways and better ways to help create and retain jobs and increase investment in the city. So this time I just wanted to offer a few minutes, or I believe we have up to 10 minutes for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Thad. All right, I'll take a look at our attendee list. Folks, if you'd like to ask a question live, raise your hand. And I do see, first up, Colleen McCarthy. I'd like to unmute you now, and you should be able to speak. Colleen, you are muted.
Can you hear me now, Henry?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry and Thad. My question is for Thad, although both of you are certainly welcome to reply. When Henry was going over the eligibility, the 3 main points, one was to prevent or eliminate blight. That under business development, can a building that's currently empty of the businesses due to a fire, would that somehow be able to fit under the HUD umbrella and get some attention? So if the building were rehabilitated, then hopefully and likely businesses would move back in.
That's a great question, Colleen, and thank you for attending. The answer that we have for our business development funding through HUD is a business would need to, be prepared to move in. And if they created jobs, then we would be eligible to utilize our program funding through business development. So if a building, yes, and that's a very unfortunate experience. If a business was ready to move in to that building and they had to make renovations or buy equipment, and as a result would create jobs in that building, we potentially could explore funding that could potentially help with that. So, whenever there's job creation, job retention, that's where we can definitely look to play a role.
I
hopefully-
think this is something that I might email you about to get into more detail and
Sure.
not take everybody's time up during this general meeting. But thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Great. All right. I see Mary Coffey. One moment. All right, Mary, you should be able to speak. It looks like you're muted, but you can speak now.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I think it's wonderful that this is used to bring businesses. I'm wondering, first of all, why we receive this automatically every year. Is it because of our high poverty rate in Rochester that never seems to change, which is very sad? And can this monies be used to step out of the city and start recruiting some large corporations to come in? I mean, Kodak was supposed to, pharmaceuticals were supposed to come in there, which would have been giving some good jobs for many of our people who are in poverty. And I just recently heard they are bringing back and doing the chips now in the United States. So things are going to be coming back. Why are we not, because of our horrendous poverty level and the suffering of our people, stepping forward and saying we have a lot of empty buildings and not recruiting large businesses to come into our city? Can you help me with that? And can these fundings be used to help for economic development? I know a group, actually Doris Parham and actually selves try to work with the U.S. Labor Department to bring in businesses. So I would love an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And those are great points you made. In regards to the second question, as far as recruiting large businesses, and I can absolutely tell you, yes, we do regularly try to recruit large businesses. The last one on the slide, I am unable to mention the name for confidentiality purposes right now, but there's a large optics firm that's looking to potentially move into the city. And every year, Mary, we'll probably have 5 to 10 businesses that we're competing against other states and other regions of the country. And along with the city, we work very closely with Eastman Business Park at Kodak. We work very closely with Empire State Development, with Monroe County, with RG&E, and all of our partners together. And what we do, Mary, we try to put together packages through strong collaboration that can really incentivize businesses to move into the city. We have been successful at times, but knowing it's a very competitive environment. So these funds are used to help provide that motivation, that incentive for businesses to relocate here. Our goal is to lower the cost of doing business in the city at all times, and these funds do help with that. But then, we do our job here, and then, as I mentioned, we closely work with the state and the county, and we try to put efforts together, through coordinated efforts. And also, I should mention Greater Rochester Enterprises, who help lead those marketing efforts. So, yes, we'd love to have more wins like that, and our hope and our goal is that we will have more in the very near future.
And are we receiving this yearly because of our poverty level? And a lot of people are, there's a lot of jobs developing, I think, in our nonprofit fields and everything. But is that why we're getting this every year? Because we have an ongoing poverty level?
That I can take that one. Mary, yeah, most cities over a certain threshold, and even some towns are in this category of called entitlement communities. So it really isn't necessarily having to do with poverty levels. It really is more about cities and towns of a certain population level.
Well,
it is primarily to be used to combat poverty and issues associated.
So poverty does have something to do with this, and when we keep getting it, things aren't changing. Maybe citizens can help get together too to try to bring in large businesses and help our people who just can't get out of poverty in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Henry, I'm calling time check
Yeah,
on
Henry.
this one. Oh, Eric, sorry,
Yep.
go ahead.
Just gonna say, we got about 2.5 minutes left for one more question.
All righty, I got
Do you-
a question from
That-
Van Smith.
Okay,
I'm going to unmute Van. Van, you're muted, but you can now speak.
Yes, good evening. My name is Van Smith, and I run a nonprofit here at 239 Alphonse Street in the city of Rochester. We provide sober housing and peer support for men that are struggling with addiction and mental health. And my question is around the creation of jobs. I see the business development division there, and I'm wondering, is there any resources for nonprofits to be able to grow their workforce?
Hi, Van, and thank you for your question. Your organization does a lot, and we're very appreciative for that. It's very meaningful. The HUD CDBG funding we have, unfortunately, can only be used towards for-profit entities, not nonprofits. But I'd love to talk to you sometime, and perhaps we can find resources, if not through us, elsewhere that might be possible. So I welcome that conversation with you at a time that's good and convenient for you. And we could learn more about what you do and if there are other potential resources.
Okay, I will actually put my email in the chat.
Very good. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
I think it's time to move on.
All right, thank you. And if we had other questions in the Q&A, we will respond to those and make sure that response is included in the materials that are sent out after this meeting. And I'll thank Thad for his presentation. Thank you, Thad.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you, everybody.
All right, next topic area, and I want to welcome Daisy Algarin, who is our Director of the Neighborhood Service Centers. Daisy?
Thank you, Henry, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to speak a little bit to the CDBG and the Neighborhood Service Centers services. Can everyone hear me? Because I just saw someone put something in that they couldn't really hear me. So I'm going to try to speak as loud as I can. The NSC's Street Liaison Program is one of the programs that we support through this funding, and it provides essential services to the business community within the targeted commercial corridors in their quadrants by providing access to information to support our small businesses with growth, attracting new businesses, and supporting economic development. And I'm going to use a quick example of how we do that. We have street liaisons that are boots on the ground. They go out and knock on doors in these assigned commercial corridors. They communicate events that are coming up, meetings and grants and resource information to our small businesses. They work closely with the city's neighborhood service centers in each quad and to accomplish annual goals and objectives for each quadrant. They also help to accomplish neighborhood improvement projects, and I'll pick a few. They've assisted us with getting flowers planted in the spring. They help us with design of banners that go up in the commercial quarters, and in some cases, commission artwork. It is a $90,000 program divided among the 4 quads. And most quads have 2 liaisons working in each quad. And if anyone wants to know the specific corridors, we can provide that information. The other aspect of this is neighborhood and asset-based building. We have $85,000 allocated this past year, $40,000 for Lyle Avenue, $40,000 for Konya, and $5,000 for the Neighborhood Leadership Training Program. This is a program, for those of you who haven't heard it, and we're actually about to launch our application. recruitment is a program that is built to help us with the capacity, to build the capacity of civically minded community members to be skillful and effective leaders. The program also helps us to bring together community members who have an interest in learning more about City Hall, learning more about our functions, and cooperate in their own communities. It is very aligned with the Rochester 2034 plan. And it is a program that runs about 8 weeks, beginning April 7 this year, wrapping it up on May 26. It is held on Thursday evenings. And sorry for the plug, but I'm looking forward to having many people sign up for this program. It is an evening program and it is virtual. See what else do I have here to share. And I'm going to pass on the information regarding the CONEA plan over to my colleague, Ms. Carol Wheeler, Director of Housing, Manager of Housing, I'm sorry.
It's the CONEA plan. It is currently underway with MKSK, which is a participant with Highland Planning. This is a plan, a master plan effort in the for the entire CONEA neighborhood. And they are expecting to have the plan actually completed in May of this year. So in just a couple of months, that plan will actually be completed. There are a couple of meetings that are being scheduled, and I will just say, stay tuned for those invitations. And if there are those that are interested in making sure that they are made aware, please feel free to get in contact with Highland Planning and let them know that you are interested, or you can contact me and I can make sure that your message is forwarded.
Thank you, Carol. And the Lyle Avenue plan, I really didn't go into detail, is a plan that is also underway with our Lyle Avenue merchants along the corridor. It has focused on between State Street up to Mount Read. We're taking it in phases. Right now, we're looking at phase from State to Dewey Avenue. It is a plan that involves the Merchant Association and the neighborhood groups. They are providing guidance and tips and ideas on how to utilize this fund to help revitalize and kick off the revitalization of Lyle Avenue corridor. I put my contact information in the chat, Tori, but I'll do it again.
Great, thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Carol. All right, now we have up to 10 minutes for question and answer on this topic. And again, I'll go to the attendee list if you have your hand raised, and we'll go through that process. All right, I'll start. Colleen, it looks like your hand is raised. And you may speak now, please.
Yes, I'm having trouble with the audio, so I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can, yes.
I have a general question. Again, I couldn't hear a lot of what Daisy was just saying, but I did hear her say the phrase Lyle Avenue corridor. Specifically, I'd like to address Monroe Avenue. At one point, we had a study and it talked about it being an extremely, for Monroe County, a very heavily trafficked corridor, and it mentioned specific intersections. We have seemingly had an excruciating time trying to get anything done to improve. I personally, every Friday afternoon for close to 3 years, called a particular City of Rochester staff member to check in with him, advocating for paving on Monroe Avenue. It finally got done about a year or so ago. Funds were released from the State Dormitory Fund. If Monroe Avenue is considered to be a major commercial corridor, could anyone please explain to me what could we, in a positive way, do to get some so to speak, love over here, get some attention, get some money, get anything to help us move forward rather than decline, 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 and call and beg and seemingly have nothing but the rock that we're trying to lift roll back down the hill over us. And I'm sorry for being negative, but I'm at my wit's end. We need some help.
I am going to, because it is a public improvement work, it sounds like, Colleen, that you're sharing with us as a need. I'm going to get back to you on that and connect you with the right person, Colleen. So let me do a little bit of work into that and I will get back to you.
And I apologize, Jaycee, if my comments
Don't-
were inappropriate.
No need to apologize. Appreciate them. Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Great. I don't see any other hands up in the list here. Oh, I thought I just saw one pop up. No. There we go. Thomas Pateki.
Just,
I should have just allowed you to speak. Go ahead.
Sure. Just a comment. I'd like to see a larger portion of the CDBG money dedicated to the service centers. They have the pulse of the neighborhoods in their service area and are best suited to allocate funding. I would definitely like to see that amount of money delivered to the service centers. Thanks.
Thank you for that comment. All right, I've got Bob Thompson. Go ahead. You're muted. You just have to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Yep, good evening. I would just might make the recommendation that the street liaisons also start touching base with the various neighborhood associations, because while my neighborhood association isn't involved much with the commercial end, we certainly interact with the folks that are running the shops and businesses. So just a future enhancement opportunity.
Bob, can you send me in the chat which associations is that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Henry, Mary Coffey's hand is up.
Yep, I've got a couple in here. I don't see Mary's up, but first let me go to Mike Evans, who had his hand up as well. Mike, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Mike Evans. I'm the Executive Director for the Southeast Area Coalition. And I just want to agree that what Tom said with getting money to our neighborhood service centers, they have been vital for the stuff that SEEK does and that assist our neighborhoods. And I also agree with getting money and love to Monroe Avenue. That is a focus of SEEK that we really want to be involved in. So I'm looking forward to that. And also, I really appreciate Jen Topa, who is our street liaison in our area. She's awesome. And I really enjoy this panel. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, Mary, it sounded like you wanted to speak. You should be able to speak now if you unmute yourself.
I'm in the same area as Colleen and SEEK. And for years, the CDBG money has really been directed primarily to one neighborhood in our particular side of the city. And it was a neighborhood much in need of help. But unfortunately, we don't see a change in the poverty level or the crime level or whatever. But we were kind of told that that's where it should be, and that's where government put it, which we understood. And if it was really changing, we would be thrilled to death. But so, is this allocated only to certain neighborhoods, or is this now changed? I know Daisy, you said at one time we made too much money in our neighborhoods or in our neighborhood.
The three objectives are, Mary, the funds have to benefit low and moderate income persons, at least 70% of the grant amount. So that's the criteria that is met by these neighborhoods that receive this funding, particularly for the street liaisons.
Okay, so it has to be about 70% of the neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is understandable, which, you know, we certainly want to make sure, but we don't see it benefiting too much. Thank you.
We have time for one more question, Henry.
I don't see any more hands raised. Do we have any written questions, Anne?
There is one, but it's not particularly related to daisies. Do we hold it?
Okay, yeah,
Or
hold
read
it. Hold it
Okay.
for the appropriate topic area.
All right.
That'd be great. All right.
There's a good question in the chat. If someone could just explain what low and moderate income means in this context for HUD, I think that would be good.
Sure, well, I'll take a stab at it. Low to moderate income is a technical term defined in HUD's regulations as up to 80% of the area median income for our metro area. So if you actually take a look online, there are some charts that kind of outline, you know, what that area median income is, and then what 80% of that is, and basically that income level is the threshold under which anybody below that amount is considered a low mod household. Hope that was clear. Probably it's kind of technical and convoluted, but essentially it's a lower income household.
Henry, could I add that 80% for our area is $64,150 for a family of 4. So if a household is making under that, they would be considered low mod.
Thank you, Carol. It's good to put some dollars. Makes it a bit more understandable. All right, unless there's any other questions, we'll move on. Last call.
You're at 10 minutes.
All right, we're out of time then. Thank you. All right, next topic area, I'd like to introduce Joanna Santiago, who is our manager of the contract services, who manages our rehab and demo programs. Joanna?
Good evening, everyone. Our priorities in our unit for the rehab and demo program is to determine areas of greatest needs that would benefit most from the CDBG funding. We also like to undertake planning and analysis of the city's program to deliver programs and address of weakness and capitalize on program strengths. With our program funding, we address child lead poisoning through the city's lead hazard program. We also address the housing repair needs of low to moderate income homeowners. Our current and past programs are our rehab programs to remediate lead hazard and to address health and safety issues. We also have the emergency assistance program, which are used to fund non-working furnace, water tanks, broken lines. And then the other responsibilities that we are in our group is our demolition program, and that's to stabilize and improve our neighborhoods by removing unsafe and blighted and abandoned structures. In our current program, we received $1.8 million for the demolition program, $575,000 for the housing repair programs, and $100,000 for our emergency assistance repair programs. In 2020, 2021, we were able to provide rehab dollars to 135 homeowners, and we demolished approximately 138 properties.
Great. All set to move to Q&A. All right, we'll now take questions and comments on this topic area. All right, I see Jerry. You should now be able to speak if you unmute yourself.
Okay, my name's Jerry Zakalik, and I'm past president of Tempro. Tempro provides emergency housing in 11 units, the individual houses for people to live in for about 30 to 45 days. And we have a social worker that tries to place people in more permanent housing. Now, homelessness is increasing, but not housing, safe, affordable housing. And evictions are beginning, and we're at a critical juncture. The city needs to work with landlords to keep their units free of violations and keep units affordable and open. The question I have is this program possibly able to work with landlords, ones that get violations, and work, and not just handing the landlord the violation, but working with them and how to get it repaired? We're finding it harder and harder to place our homeless families, their women and children, because there's nothing available. And a lot of the ones that we used to do business with can't rent it. There's a violation, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it fixed. And maybe it could be in the form of a small business loan or a small grant. You're probably talking a couple $100 to $500 to fix some of these things. Then that apartment would be opened, and we'd be able to move our people in it.
So currently we have our lead hazard control program that landlords do qualify for it. In reference to CDBG funding, our current programs right now are only for owner occupants in the city, but it is something that we can open up to landlords as long as they provide rent to low-income individuals.
Okay, is there a way that they do it other than the lead program? You've got a landlord that needs a hot water tank. Would they work with the landlord to do something to fix it?
Unfortunately, right now, we don't have any funds that would, help the landlords in that aspect. But it's something that we can definitely look into.
But then my question in general is, in any of these programs that we're going to be talking about, is there a way of working with landlords to be able to get their places out of violation so we can move homeless people? And as the evictions go away, I mean, the holding off on evictions is going away, so there's going to be more homeless people.
Yes, we can work with landlords. It'll be something that we would actually, we can figure out if we can put some sort of allocations for landlords in the upcoming year.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. All right, I'm going to move down through our list here. I see L. Regan. Go ahead.
Hi, so with regard to the rehab program, does that also apply to, for example, a home where a senior lives that needs to be made accessible because they're losing physical mobility? Perhaps they have to move to the first floor. And as a second part of that, does it apply to a renter? I know there's, you said it has to be owner occupied. So if it's owner occupied duplex, for example, that rents to a senior that needs to be made accessible, does it apply to that type of program?
Yes.
Okay, it'd be really helpful. I will ask a question later after you do the general home housing program, because this relates to questions of how to increase the number of units where seniors can age in place in our communities, because our low-income residents have a very hard time figuring out assistance. They cannot afford to move to nursing homes generally or to assisted living, and they're ending up living in multi-generational households that aren't safe because they don't have bedrooms on the first floor. And this is something that could help with that problem.
Great, thank you. All right, I see John, you should now be able to speak. You unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm wondering if when people get evicted, do we automatically review the state of the house to make sure that they're not just going to re-rent it to somebody else who they'll then evict if they complain about any problems? Because we have a lot of students in the city who are homeless at any one time, and part of the reason is that the house they were staying at was not being properly maintained, and if they complain, they may get the boot. Are we using the full leverage we have to make sure that houses get renovated, and preferably that they get renovated before somebody gets evicted?
So are you asking, just want to make sure I understand your question. If a property right now is currently occupied and then that individual becomes, moves out of the property for one reason or the other, you're asking if we go into the property to evaluate that property?
Yes.
That is not something we currently do. Through the code enforcement unit, they do have the C of O and the inspection area where they can probably go in and do some sort of inspection of the property and determine whether or not there's code violations. But anything other than that, right now, there's not anything available.
Because a lot of people get kicked out because they're complaining about something that it should have been taken care of, and some landlords find it less expensive to evict the person and then rent to somebody else without having fixed the problem in hand. And that's really hurting a lot of people.
And that's definitely a piece of feedback we're hearing a lot more recently. And I know it's something that is something the administration is really looking at as a topic of focus, is, you know, code enforcement and how we can improve those outcomes. And we do hope that we can also educate tenants to know that it's, you know, illegal to for a landlord to evict them on the basis of that they complained, and that they can be protected in court. And currently right now we do provide help pay for free attorneys for folks going through eviction court. So, but again, you know, it's an education process for sure, and it's a difficult situation.
Henry, we have about a minute and a half left, and I know there's a couple comments or questions about demolition out there.
All right. I don't see any hands raised, but I'll take it if you have a written question.
Yes, we have two. Maybe we can get through very quickly. There's one question about whether we would consider spending the demolition dollars on grants to renovate homes at risk of demolition. This might speak to why do we demolish rather than renovate? Joanna.
So that is a good question. It's something that we are looking into to determine, you know, what other areas or how can we move forward with, you know, with that. We do prefer not demolishing a property and having it rehabbed. So it is something that we are looking into currently.
And the second question is, how many properties are slated for demolition in the coming year? And how are the houses determined to be too far gone for rehab so that they have to be demolished?
As of right now, there's about 62 properties in our demolition list. A lot of the properties usually come from when we have the tax foreclosure sale. So we haven't had any in about 2 years. So right now, that's why the list of properties is not that much. But the way it's determined is that one of the rehab specialists would go to the property and do an inspection and determine whether or not it's safe.
We are
try.
over 10 minutes.
All right, thank you. So we'll have to move on, but yes, definitely, I think we try to preserve as many viable structures as we possibly can through our various programs. And that's maybe something we can touch on in the housing area later on in the presentation. All right. Next topic area is Recreation and Human Services. And I'd like to introduce Sarah Scott, who's our Director of Recreations and Park Stewardship. Sarah, go ahead.
Great, thanks everybody. So the Department of Recreation and Human Services, we utilize our CDBG allocation to develop programming that promotes youth employment and job readiness and career skills, entrepreneurship. We do a lot around positive youth development and youth leadership, as well as civic engagement. And then we also utilize CDBG funding for park and playground improvements at our rec centers and at city parks. So the breakdown in 2020, 2021, again, these numbers were definitely impacted by COVID restrictions. So similar to the school districts, we had a lot of limitations on youth gathering as well as our rec centers programming. Our Summer of Opportunities youth program, which is somewhat of a misnomer because it is a summer employment program, but there are year-round opportunities for youth as well. Last year, they worked with and employed 107 youth in summer jobs, as well as a program called YET, which is our youth employment training program. Youth complete the program, they get assistance with resume building, and then they can either choose to try to work with the city to get placed in a job or use that resume and skills they've learned to go out and find a job in the community. We engaged 800 youth in a free mobile recreation program. So this is our steam engine Rec on the Move program. We have standing rec facilities, some of which are co-located with libraries or throughout the city in all 4 quadrants. But we also are very well aware that some youth and families do not live within a safe walk or bike of those facilities. And so we have mobile rec programming that goes out into parks and activates those spaces so that families have a safe place to recreate. And then we have a focus on STEAM education, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, to bring that component to someone's point earlier, ways that we kind of work with and support the RCSD to make sure our youth are career and job ready. Our rock music program, which is an awesome and pretty unique program serving specifically urban youth in rec centers. And a lot of these students are also RCSD students. We just consider them our city youth. This program provides weekly music classes to over 125 youth, free of charge. The teachers are instructors from Hochstein. The youth attend RPO concerts. They get instruments. They, during COVID, had individualized Zoom classes each week. So we try to provide them with the same level of music education that a student whose parents have the ability to pay for would receive. Our Rock Paint Division program, this is our mural arts program. There's also 2 parts to this. Rock Paint Division is a school year program, and the Peculiar Asphalt is our summer program. Rock Paint Division has designed and installed murals at rec centers, libraries. All of the locations need to be CDBG eligible and they need to be public. So all those murals are public facing. Our Peculiar Asphalt program was a program that was created by one of our public art coordinators. It's an opportunity to employ youth in summer employment, and they actually create colorful mural installations at city parks, specifically on basketball courts. So the sites listed here, Jackson Rec Center, Gant, those are in the Northeast, Roxy Sinkler's in the Southwest, TC Hope is in the Northeast, the Northwest. Those are all rec centers that either received indoor murals or basketball court murals. Some of the other programs that are supported through our CDBG allocation, our Youth Voice One Vision, which is our youth civic engagement program. So this is a Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. So the youth participate in a youth council. They represent each of the rec centers. They gather the youth voice around various things, Comp 2034, like a bunch of different projects the mayor and the administration are interested in. Also issues that the youth are seeing in the rec centers or in their neighborhoods. And they bring those back to the larger committee and try to have solutions that are coming from the youth. And they also receive a small stipend for their time. So making sure that it's something that's engaging, but also of interest to them when there's so many different demands on their time. The last piece is park and playground improvements. So this is the way that we are able to renovate playgrounds, install water features at playgrounds and parks. This is the funding that we utilize to do all of our park improvements. So some of the locations that we focused on last year were Campbell, which is a complete renovation of the water park playground and baseball fields. Don Samuel Torres Park in the Northeast, we were able to do complete renovation in combination with the school district of the playground, the baseball fields, the basketball courts, adult fitness equipment. And then, so we did a complete renovation at University Merriman. That was an old wooden playground, the last existing wooden playground in the city. It was well past its usable life. Troop Street in the Southwest, we did a complete renovation there. Edgerton Rec Center and Lower Maplewood Park is slated. So, and just to be clear, so folks are aware, all of the parks and playgrounds in the city that are publicly owned, whether that is City of Rochester or RCSD, are open to the public. There's no permitting to be gated or closed. Obviously they have hours, but they're open to every youth and family. The only gated or closed locations would be private daycares, etc. So there you can see down there the budget allocations, how the money is broken out for the various projects. So our youth programming, our job creation and youth development programming, that includes YVOV, Biz Kids, our summer employment programming, our playground apparatus. And one of our newer allocations is the city's Connecting Children to Nature. This is funding that supports environmental education programming. That's pretty much that. I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, we'll take some questions. All right, let's see. I see Colleen, go ahead. Colleen, you're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Hello, Sarah. I just want to say that very briefly, but that in all my dealings with you, you have just been an exemplary public servant. And in my experience, you have done awesome work to help the people of the citizens of Rochester. And now for my question. Has there ever been a study?
Warm me up, Colleen. Thank you.
Oh, no. I segued pretty fast there.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Thank you.
Has there ever been a study related to the rec centers and the students that are using them? I am ignorant about how the school kids are actually getting to the rec center. It seems like it's great for the people that are within walking distance or that might be, old enough to use public transportation, but there are some kids. Has anybody ever looked into, are kids getting left behind because the location is actually not accessible or easy for them to get to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually have a relationship with the RCSD. So a parent can elect to have the bus that would normally drop their child off at home. They can be dropped off at a rec center or one of our camp programs or after school programs. So there is transportation provided for youth whose parents elect to take that opportunity. And so we're trying to do a better job of pushing that out both through our communication networks as well as to the RCSD parent liaisons and principals We're blessed that our current commissioner is a former RCSD staff person, so we have a lot of great connections there.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. All right, I see Thomas, I think you have your hand up. Thomas, you're muted, but you can speak now. Going once, twice. All right, we'll have to move on. I don't have any other hands raised. Do we have any written questions?
This is more of a comment, but maybe Sarah might want to add to it. It says more support for youth employment that expands on summer of opportunity and allows for centralized, well-coordinated, year-round employment opportunities is essential if we're going to tackle the larger issues our community faces.
Yeah, that's a great point. And certainly it's definitely a goal and I guess a priority area for this current, for Mayor Evans. So certainly, actually Mayor Evans was one of the founding members of our Youth Voice One Vision program. So a lot of connections to youth services. And so it's always a goal to expand our meaningful job opportunities for youth. So we do a lot of work with Rochester Works. We're trying to recruit, and this isn't my area, but we're trying to recruit new employers who have the skill and ability to work with youth and provide meaningful employment that could then lead to future employment. There's also some opportunities within the ARPA funding to expand youth job development. So making sure that the youth that are coming in are ready to take on a job and understand what that means and have, a resume and interview skills, but then also can be placed in a meaningful employment. So yes, that certainly is a focus of ours for this coming year. And we're very happy to say that we were recently able to bring all of our youth workers up to a $15 wage so that we can compete with, Wegmans and other employers so that these youth can shadow city staff and other meaningful careers in the city.
Super. Any other written questions?
None.
All right. Last call for questions on this topic, or we'll move on. I see Colleen. Excuse me, Colleen, I think I saw your hand up.
Hi. As far as the dollars from CDBG and how they're flowing in and out of the city budget, under the new mayor, I would certainly expect that there would be a bump up for anything related to youth programs. Has there been a stated dollar amount increase or percentage? And is this money all coming from CDBG or from other sources?
So the money that we're talking about now, some of this money partially funds programming. So this isn't the only source of funding for the Department of Recreation and Youth Services. We're currently in the beginning stages of budget planning for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. So those decisions haven't been made. And I know there'll be public input opportunities around the city's overall budget, and certainly would encourage folks to come out and advocate for the programming.
Great. Mary, Mary Coffey, did you have another question?
Well, I wanted to say this is wonderful and it's helping the youth, which is so needed today. And I like the way they have everything broken down on the categories they're working on. Is there an end of year, not just recreation? This is very well presented. There's a lot of money being spent here. Who's watching and making sure everything's being spent correctly? And is there an end of the year where we can all as citizens see where everything was allotted with the money? And when we're seeing that it's going to be, but can we see exactly where it went? And who is overseeing this, I guess? It's a big thing to oversee.
I could take that one, Mary. So the oversight of the HUD grants is through the Commissioner's Office in Neighborhood and Business Development and through my team. I work under Andy Silvatella, and we have an extended team, about 4 or 5 people who work on it. So we kind of manage the overall compliance and reporting processes, and we rely on our program managers like Sarah to do certain aspects like keeping documentation and making sure people are eligible and things of that nature. In terms of the report card, we actually do have a annual, it's called the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. It's required by HUD to do annually. That usually comes out in September, following the close of our budget year at the end of June. So all the figures that we're reporting, here in this PowerPoint are from that report. Actually, we call it the CAPER for short, and those are available on our website, Consolidated Plan 2020. cityofrochester.gov/consolidated plan 2020. And we also do a public posting of those plans as required by HUD.
Thank you. I mean, we come from the part of the city where we did have quite a scandal on corruption of government monies. And so, of course, we're very attuned. Who is overseeing making sure something like this never happens again, and it goes to the people who need the help? So that's why I'm asking.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate that, and very important. Absolutely, that we have firm controls on this program. All right, how are we doing on time, Eric?
We have about 30 seconds left here for this section.
All right. I think with that, we should probably, unfortunately, move on to our next topic area. Again, other questions in writing, we can hope to get to at the end of the presentation or respond in writing following. All right, next topic area is housing, and I'd like to introduce Linda Hedden, who is an Associate Administrative Analyst in the Housing Division. Linda, go ahead.
Thank you, Henry. Hello, everybody. Housing supports a number of different funding programs to undertake the work that we do. We receive funding of Community Development Block Grant, Home Funds, HOPWA, and Emergency Solutions Grant Funds. Our priorities in housing for CDBG funding: to provide decent housing and a suitable living environment for low moderate income households through public services and the rehabilitation of housing, to help residents become more stable in their housing. Our activities that we support include assistance to seniors to remain in their homes, landlord-tenant education, and mortgage default resolution. Current programs being offered that the city partners with and provides funding to include foreclosure prevention, aging in place, legal services for seniors, and Home Rochester program administration. If you look at the chart below, you can see the accomplishments funded through those CDBG dollars for foreclosure prevention. 53 households received services. That really means that they reached a resolution to the foreclosure issue that they were facing. For aging in place, there were 345 senior households served. For landlord tenant services, 110 households received services, and almost 800 landlords received services on how to provide housing according to their responsibilities and to learn about how to be effective business managers. Our Home Rochester program management assistants provided support so that 6 households could purchase fully rehabilitated homes during the last fiscal year. For 2022, housing's total CDBG allocation is $290,600. That's made up of $186,000 for the Home Rochester program management, $30,000 towards senior legal services, $30,000 toward landlord tenant services, and $44,600 for foreclosure prevention. For those of you who have joined us over the years and seen this information, some of these numbers might look a little small to you. I want to let you know that there are other currently available funds that are being used to augment these services, and we are able to provide services at a level equal to or above what we have done in the past. We were able to take advantage of those funds and spread our CDBG funds for other needs because there were COVID pandemic related resources available, and those services remained at levels that they were prior. For 2023, I mean, we're looking to continue to maintain and improve housing stability for low and moderate income households. So the Home Investment Partnership Program, also known as HOME, this is specifically for housing activities assisting low and moderate income households. For 21-22, including some program income, there was over $2.5 million available. They were allocated in the following ways. 15% of the city's allocation is dedicated to community housing development organizations. That is a federal requirement. Those funds are used to assist with the redevelopment of Home Rochester homes for sale to folks at or below 80% of median income. There is also 10% for administration to help cover staffing and other costs related to having the services provided. $300,000 toward homebuyer assistance program, helping low moderate income homeowners achieve homeownership with assistance from these funds, and $1.6 million to the Affordable Housing Fund, which covers a wide range of housing activities, including either the development of new affordable rental housing or the rehabilitation of existing rental housing, or funds for rehabbing homes for homeownership, or the construction of new homes for homeownership. Couple highlights from last year's accomplishments: 67 new units were constructed with home funds, 19 first-time homebuyers were assisted to become homeowners. Housing opportunities for persons with AIDS. These funds provide assistance and support services for low-income persons with HIV, AIDS, and their families. There was $1,002,981 received for 2021. And there are 2 local organizations that provide services specific to this population and their families. And in 2021, 138 households were assisted. Emergency Solutions Grants. These funds are used to assist folks who are either experiencing homelessness or at risk of becoming homeless. It includes street outreach and emergency shelter activities, homeless assistance, and homelessness prevention. The allocation for 21-22 is $707,618. And the funds for last year were allocated to 14 different projects and assisted 3,652 persons. That's the 2021 fiscal year. Any questions? I'd like to say that I'll be joined in responding to questions by Carol Wheeler, who's our manager of housing, and one of my colleagues, John Oster, who also serves in the housing division.
Thank you, Linda. All right, I will go first to Teresa Cowhert. Go ahead. You are muted. If you unmute yourself, you may speak.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Terlisa Coward. I'm a member of Central Church of Christ, where Minister Clifford Florence is the associate minister. We partner with Red Cross. And for example, in the last 30 days, we've received at least 10 different families that are victims of a fire. And we offer them whatever we can. We ask what their needs are. Some need clothes, food, and a lot of them need housing. And from our understanding, they get a debit card from Red Cross, but there is nothing that happens. There's a gap from the time their money runs out on the debit card from Red Cross until they get whatever it is that they need. About a month ago, a family came to us, and it was a family of 4. And we were on a conference call before service because they needed a place to stay. And they were just told by Red Cross, because we were on a conference call, come back on Monday or go to DSS on Monday. So my question is, what can Central Church of Christ do to try to help? And I'm asking, is there a grant that the church can apply for? And to say when they come, for example, if they have to wait to go to DSS on Monday, what can we do to help them right now? We can do a love offering. We could do food. We can do clothes, but we don't even have a list of places that we can actually refer them to spend the night for right now. And that's what we're trying to do.
Linda or Carol?
Yes, I'm coming off mute, so please forgive me. There is an after hours number for DHS, so people do not have to wait until Monday morning. And that's something that I can put in the chat as far as what that number is.
I understand that, ma'am. And what I think maybe I was talking too fast. When the lady of the family of 4 was in our church about a month ago, she had spoken with DSS. She was going there on Monday. And I think what the situation was there, she had a 5-month-old grandbaby, and Red Cross was on the phone we were on a conference call, and DSS was basically telling her they can come to the emergency shelter, which I believe was at Best Western, but she couldn't bring the 5-month-old baby because she didn't have legal guardian of the baby. So we're trying to find out. We know she has to go to DSS, and sometimes when you go to DSS, that's a 45-day whatever. If it's an emergency, what, if anything, can we do right now to help them? And is there a list of places we can refer them to? We told them about 211, but we're also linked to 211. This Saturday, 4 family members that lost everything in a fire is coming to our church to shop. And when I say shop, everything is free. They're coming to get clothes, but we want to know, is there a grant that we can apply for? Is there a list of emergency places where we can be sort of the liaison to say, maybe you can go here for tonight. Maybe you can go here for 3 nights. Because if you get the benefit card from DSS, what, if anything, you do when the card runs out?
I wanted to chime in about this. There is a list of agencies that provide emergency housing services based on a specific population type. Sometimes, families with small children or single parents, females want to stay, amongst other females. So there are resources out there. If you could put your information in the chat, I'll make sure we can get you that list. And as far as specific grants to help for this population, I think this is a really unique situation. The one you mentioned about not having guardianship, a lot of organizations' hands are tied because of the regulations their funders have. So I think that was a really difficult situation. But as far as getting the list to you about potential resources, I'd be happy to talk to you more about maybe financial resources that those folks can access, or you can help them access, but we'll definitely get you that list of organizations you can refer them to as well.
Okay, do you know if there's some kind of a grant that Central Church of Christ can apply for to be able to do some of the things that you all are talking about, that there are other agencies? And I know some people were talking about the different shelters and whatnot. Is there anything that the church can apply for to do this in addition to getting the list, because we certainly need the list, because some people are coming to us on Saturday, and it would be nice to give them a copy of this.
There might be, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about that. We have some sources of funding that aren't necessarily talked about on this call. ESG could be a potential option. I know we're talking about that a little bit on this call, but that might be a stretch. But I would definitely want to explore that with you. There are also other agencies locally that you could partner with on an application to access funds. So
we have we're going to be on a conference, I think is Restoration Rochester on the 11th.
Okay, I would encourage Ms. Coward and John, if you could continue this conversation offline, and we can have some more time for other questions.
Thank you. All right, next up, Jerry, please go ahead.
Well, basically the same question about can this part of the equation help landlords?
Gary, are you the gentleman who asked about and talked about Tempro earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think we work with Tree, who works on that program now, and we think that's a fantastic program. And I think somewhat the same answer. I think ESG could be a potential option, not necessarily for fixing the units, but for maybe some other of the work that would be associated with that. So I was going to send you a message actually in the chat, but if you could put your contact info in there, I'd like to reach out to you and talk more about that.
Okay, thanks.
Great. L. Regan, is that Lisa? Go ahead.
So I made reference earlier to the aging in place challenge. The Sage 2 housing committee that was being run through Common Ground Health identified a couple of issues about seniors. Rochester is one of the oldest cities, oldest as in the highest number of aged persons in the state. And we've got a serious problem with seniors who are not appropriate to go to shelters when they have housing instability. They tend to just double up with family and go anywhere they can other than to a shelter for really good reasons. There are a lot of seniors who cannot, two separate problems, cannot any longer maintain their houses themselves, but it's better for their mental health and their ability to stay physically healthy longer for them to stay in their neighborhoods where they have contacts, where they recognize the streets, they know how to get to the stores. So it would be helpful, given that a significant number of the seniors in the city of Rochester cannot, they can't afford to go to nursing homes or to transitional living houses. So they're, as I said, they're in multi-generational households where it's not necessarily safe. There isn't a first floor bedroom, and family don't necessarily have the bandwidth to provide sufficient support. And so it'd be helpful to support the 2034 plan that's to encourage homeownership and also the aging in place. If resources were devoted to acquisition of some of the many duplexes we've got, particularly in the Plex, Cornhill, and South Wedge neighborhoods, where a first-time home buyer could be subsidized to purchase the homes and rent to a senior who would be on the first floor. We've got Episcopal Senior Living in the area and St. John's Home, and we can utilize their experience and expertise in providing support services for seniors. Understandably, many seniors do not want to, even if they can afford to, go to a nursing home during COVID. And so this has been particularly exacerbated, and the nursing homes don't have sufficient staff right now anyway. So this is a way to try to support aging in place and home ownership, provide a supportive environment that's safe for seniors in an area that they recognize already and where there are many resources to support them in doing that. And I'd like to ask that you consider that. A separate ask regarding people at risk is something that was discussed by the Access to Justice Housing Committee today, and that's people who, and they tend to be seniors, who show up in housing court either because they've got code violations or because they're being evicted. They are of questionable competence. They're stressed. They need services. They may be living without utilities, with a red tag furnace, or other serious problems like hoarding, or many cats. There's no budget line anywhere for appointing a guardian ad litem for these people. Many of the service agencies and the city spend an inordinate amount of resources trying to help people in this situation to get into a safe situation. Guardian ad litem would be responsible for helping the person through the specific thing that brought them to court. If there was some money available to help support funding a guardian ad litem program for this, attorneys could be appointed to people under these very difficult circumstances to keep them from being homeless.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. We are over 11 minutes in now, so we are out of time.
If I could quickly respond to that, I would like to say thank you for those comments and share with you that we do provide services through Lifespan to assist folks to age in place with security reviews and access to small grants to make changes to their homes so that they're safer in their homes, whether it's grab bars or other safety items. In addition, we are aware and sensitive to the changing needs of seniors. And one of the projects that we have funded with home dollars recently is the Zion Hill Senior Apartments, which recently completed construction and is being leased up in the southwest part of the city. And one of the goals of that particular project was specifically to allow seniors with modest income to be able to age in place in their communities. And so we're looking for those opportunities. That was one that was a faith-based partnership initiative. And we're eager to try and continue to do that kind of work and provide those type of housing opportunities for what we know is a very, very significant need. So thank you for those comments.
Great, thank you, Linda, and thanks you for our participants for those questions. We are very short on time, folks. We are over an hour and a half in here, so we're gonna have to move very quickly through the rest of our presentation. Fortunately, just a few more slides. So that concluded our overview of our programs in the upcoming, that we currently operate through with federal funds under our annual action plan process. And there'll be more to come on that. One other item we wanted to cover today is a proposed amendment to what is called our Citizen Participation Plan. The participation plan outlines our public meeting protocols and public posting protocols for this planning process. So how we will conduct our public engagement and public input process. So that plan is part of our 5-year plan. It's typically updated every 5 years. However, we'd like to amend that citizen participation plan to allow us to continue to hold our public engagement meetings like this one via Zoom and other virtual means. We are only able to do it currently because of the COVID pandemic and emergency situation, but we would like to give the city flexibility to continue operating these with Zoom and virtual public meetings, particularly because we've actually seen an increase in public engagement and participation and attendance in these meetings compared to doing them in person. Makes them more accessible, particularly people who may have transportation barriers, who may have time constraints. Easier for people to participate in this way. They also get recorded and posted on YouTube automatically. So lots of benefits. But we could take a question or two or comment or two on this if there is any. I see Bob. I saw you just raise your hand.
Yep. I mean, I'm an advocate of Zoom, but I think that there might be a need for some kind of hybrid participation plan for those that don't have access to the technology to be part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment. I see some other hands up, but they've been up for a while, so I'm not sure. Can people lower your hand and then raise it again if you are trying to speak? Thomas, I see, looks like you're trying to speak. Go ahead.
Sure. I just would like to echo what Bob said. I believe we can do both. There are a lot of people that do not have access to this technology, and we're missing a lot of good comments and input. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Definitely. We will definitely take those into consideration. All right. So there will be more opportunity to comment on this, and I'll outline, we have to, just because we're out of time here, move forward. So again, like I mentioned, there's a lot more opportunity for public comment and engagement in our upcoming planning process. The next big piece of that is the April 20th public meeting, which we will go through several items in detail for additional public comment and input. So about the beginning of April, we'll have published our draft annual action plan based on your input and priorities that will outline our draft budget for our funding. And following, the publishing of that, there will be a 30-day public comment period, and we'll be taking additional public comment at that April 20th meeting. The draft of this amended citizen participation plan will also be published, and we'll have another opportunity to take comments on that. And then we will also have an amendment to our current fiscal year 2021-22 plan to include some changes and additional funding, one being some additional COVID stimulus funding in the area of home related to homelessness, and change to one of our business development programs and shift some funding between two different programs. So again, more information to come on all those items in advance of the April 20th meeting. And then following, as I said, a lot of these plans will be published before, in early April. April 20th, we'll have a second public meeting. We'll be submitting then, following that public meeting, to City Council to approve the plan and authorize our submission to HUD. Council will also hold a public hearing at that time. In addition to the April 20th meeting, Council will hold a public hearing on the plan for final comments before they vote to approve it. Then we'd have Council approval and submit to HUD, and then our program year would begin in July. So, and as I mentioned throughout, these slides and all of our materials, draft plans, are posted to our City of Rochester webpage, cityofrochester.gov/consolidated plan 2020. So we'll be posting the slides, we'll be posting the draft plans when they're available, and there's also more information on how to submit written feedback and questions if you have them after the meeting or between our next meetings. So with that concludes our meeting tonight. Thank you for your attendance, your questions, your comments, and thank you to our panelists and program managers and leadership for their time and expertise in helping us present tonight. All right, thank you, folks, and please, again, feel free to submit additional comments through those means.